Make your dad glad. Give him lots of kisses. Make your dad glad. Hey, it's almost Father's Day. And so I'm doing this for all of you. I'm doing this for all of you that like you forgot. You're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And so you can just PayPal me, just send me an offering on PayPal. Actually, I don't want you to do that, but don't forget, it's Father's Day this Sunday. So make your dad glad, give him lots of hugs and kisses. And I think today, maybe a little bit on the show, I'll just help you with some things. So here's some things that your dad wants. Okay. Hugs and kisses. More than socks, more than a fishing pole. Maybe a convertible, some if you can afford that would be super cool, right? But don't forget the hugs and the kisses. He wants that love. He wants those hugs and kisses. He wants to know that you love him and that you appreciate him and that he's all that in a bag of chips. Do that and then give him the fishing pole and the socks. They'll go farther. They'll go farther.
Such good advice. This is the public service announcement for the day.
Yeah.
With Father's Day fast approaching. Yes.
Well, I try when, there's holidays or something, I try to mix it up a little bit, like with the attire, oh, hey, happy St. Patrick's Day. Ha ha ha. But this Sunday is a pretty important day. And for some people, sometimes it's a little bit challenging to celebrate Father's Day. And I get that, and I understand that. And I just want to encourage you, no matter what your relationship has been or what your relationship is now, is to forgive and to move into a place of love, into a place of understanding, and tell your dad that you love him. Give him hugs, give him lots of kisses. And if my children are watching, which they won't be, yeah, my kids are like, Facebook is so, because they're younger, whatever. So they won't be. But if you guys ever do see this, hey, guys, I need your hugs. I need your kisses. So we would just want to help you. Just want to help you. Maybe give him a call, maybe text and tell your dad he's rad.
Yeah, I see that on your shirt there. So that is what you're hoping you'll hear this Sunday is, Dad, you're rad.
Not hoping. No, we're
expecting.
It's in writing. Like they when they were really little, when they were really young, we had them, sign quite a few contracts of things that they would do and wouldn't do. And they signed in crayon, but we hold them. We hold them accountable. Yeah, we hold them accountable. So absolutely.
That's awesome.
It is.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I probably shouldn't mentor people on parenting. I do things a little different.
Yeah. Have your children sign crayon when they're 3. They will call you rad their whole life.
Well, that's
Jeremiah's for the day.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's definitely the hope. For sure. Well, hey, so we got a show today. We got some folks that are joining us. Hope all you rad dads are out there getting ready. Hope you're going to have a fun-filled Sunday. But hey, tell me a little bit about what we got going on today.
Today we have 2 of Unlocking Your Book members. We have Artie, I hope I don't say her name wrong, Artie Royan, and she's going to be pitching her book. And then we have Paula Burr coming on to ask us a tough question. She's going to ask Jeremiah a tough question because he loves to get the tough questions.
Yeah, I'm a rad dad. Bring it on. Very, very cool.
Yes.
Good. Okay, well, very cool. Well, let's get right to it. So let's jump in with Paula here in the next 30 seconds. Let's go. Rock and roll. Happy Father's Day. Paula.
Hi.
Hi, Paula.
Doing?
Hi, Krissy. Hi, Jeremiah. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
How are you today, Paula?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
And where are you located?
I'm on the south coast of England.
Wow.
It's near a place called Eastbourne, if anybody's heard of that.
Only in the movies.
What was it called?
Eastbourne.
Oh, okay. Only in the movies, Jeremiah said yes.
It's quite near Brighton as well, if that's just a bit further away. But you might have heard of Brighton more than Eastbourne.
Yeah. I love British accents. I love English accents. I always thought, man, Lord, are you sure? What wasn't I supposed to be British? And then my wife is like, look at your personality, Jeremiah. You don't fit. You don't fit with the British people. And so I'm good. It's good. But I love UK. I love London. I love the British. I love British people. Um, so thank you for being on our show and being British, Paula.
Oh, well,
Yes.
it's where I was born, so.
It's awesome.
Well, Paula, we are excited to dive into your question today. I know when we asked you what you were hoping to gain out of your time on the show with us today, you had mentioned clarity about the structure of your book. So I really hope we can help you with that. Why don't you go ahead and ask us your question, and Jeremiah will answer it.
Yeah, that'd be good if you can, Jeremiah. Yeah, so I'm writing a book, and I'm really trying to get the structure together, because how I put the structure will affect what I put in the material. So I don't want to write too much more before I've got that sorted. Mm-hmm. So I've come up with a couple of ideas. One of them, when I was looking through some of my journals and things, is a kind of theme of the mind, the role of the mind in the Christian life, and I wrote down some chapter headings like, who are you listening to, and what do you spend your time thinking about, and the role, the whole thing about praise and worship in your life, because that seems to be a theme that was coming out. And then drawing on examples in my own life where, that would help me, because I was trying to get across that, it applies to everybody. And the other structure was just that, was really looking at separate seasons in my life, and starting, with the theme that this is a kind of a journey of a lifetime kind of thing, walking with God, and then looking at different seasons in my life and drawing out, lessons from those. So there's kind of two options there, and I really wanted to be able to just focus on one or the other, because that will affect how I write the book, and I don't want to write too much more in case it, you end up having to rewrite a lot because it doesn't really fit in with the theme. And also getting some boundaries around that, because I've got quite a lot of material I could draw upon, but I need to organise it in a way that's going to be meaningful for the people who read it. Yeah.
So, Paula, what's the name of your book?
Well, I've kind of come. One was, if it was going to be sort of to do with the mind, I was going to look at something like a mind set free, or the other one was just, the journey of a lifetime, which is basically, a life walking with God. Yeah.
Okay. And then how many words, where are you at with words right now? How many words do you have?
It's not a huge number. It's something like 3,000 or 4,000. Because what I've been doing is I've been putting little bits on different Word documents so that I can kind of put them together, organise them a bit more, and I'm a bit clearer about what I want to do about the headings, to kind of get a skeleton to fit everything else on.
Yep. And what you're hoping to do is you're going to tell a little bit about your life story. You're going to tell a little bit about your journey, and then you're going to bring out these God-sized encounters and applications to help people be able to have those same type God-sized encounters and be able to apply your process and your journey to their own life and help them activate some of those things to get the victories that you've got. That's
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of showing it's not all, it's not all up and all victories. There's struggles and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit. Talk about what are, and just for a moment, rather than talking about victory, rather than talking about the breakthrough, but actually just talk a little bit about the pain, talk a little bit about the problem, talk about your hardships, the things that you went through that you're going to address specifically in your book for other people to read.
Well, I suppose the first thing was, you know, the earliest time in my Christian life when I became a Christian when I was in my early teens, and in that process, I sort of came through that process through kind of getting a sort of depression, eating disorder kind of way, and God helped me through that. I mean, it wasn't a quick job. I mean, it took several years, but yeah, it was how He helped me through that, really, because not much was known about it then, you know, like it is now. So it was very much relying on God and how He did that. Because, and the other thing was how God, I suppose, looking at, I've been a sort of fairly happy child, and then something went wrong, and then looking at how you know, all this depression and you know, this eating disorder sort of took over my life and affected it, and God kind of came into that, and you know, through a series of happenings and support, He brought me through that. And it's also the fact that it's not something that, you know, when you become a Christian, everything doesn't all go away, all the bad stuff. You've got to manage it through your life.
Yeah.
You know, just, you know, His goodness, really, and you know, bringing me through it. So that was a kind of, you know, earlier on in my life, and some of the things I've learned from that, they helped me later on in life as well. And you know, and I hope to be able to encourage other people, because I do work in my church. I work quite a bit with kind of teenage girls at Girls Brigade, 11 to 14, and you see what they're going through sometimes. It's such a painful time in life for a lot of them, and it might be that there's, you know, engaging with perhaps somebody in that kind of situation, maybe.
Yeah. Now, Paula, you mentioned depression. You mentioned the eating disorder. So can you talk a little bit about the depression and talk a little bit more about the actual eating disorder in terms of how did it actually make you feel? So, for example, rather than us just saying, okay, I had an eating disorder. So what were some of the emotions that you were having during that? What were the way that you interacted with people? How did that affect your sleep? How did that affect your relationship with your parents? And talk a little bit about the actual emotions and how it affected life. How did an eating disorder and how did depression bring some chaos to your life? Give me some examples of something that actually happened in relationships or in life as a result of some of those things going on and happening.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that happened was I became a lot more isolated, because you become cut off from other people, because you don't, for instance, you don't want to be eating out with people because you don't want to eat anything, and so you become more isolated. And also that I found that the depression was a sort of frozenness, not feeling anything, just kind of mechanically going through the day, being very having a very rigid routine, and you know, doing everything in a very rigid way, but not feeling anything, kind of going through motions. Yeah, and being, I mean, I had kind of taken the first step of faith there, but the faith I had then was very much one of self-improvement. It started off by trying to improve myself, and trying to do everything right, you know, follow all the rules and everything, and that was part of it as well. You know, because later on when God showed me, you know, it wasn't up to me. That's why He died for me, and you know, it was Him that was doing it, and that's what made the difference. So yeah, and yeah.
Now, for someone that has a eating disorder, and I know that, you know, there are different types of eating disorders, but let's just talk a little bit about, like, what are some of the really deep feelings? So, for example, your particular eating disorder, what was the feeling that you were having when you didn't want to, say, go out to eat with people, or when you were getting ready for school and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, what were some of the thoughts that you had? What were some of the emotions that you were feeling as you're trying to process getting ready for school, looking in the mirror, going out with friends, coming out of your bedroom, and being a part of society? What were some of those feelings and some of those emotions?
I'll say it was all just, it was just very, very flat. I couldn't, there was no sense of enjoying anything. Just being very mechanical and more and more as it took over, it was just, that's just what's in your mind. You're planning when your next meal is, because you're not having very much, you're hungry all the time. I still carried on going to school, and I worked hard. I was doing quite well academically, because it didn't affect my ability to do my schoolwork. And I think, friends were concerned about me as well. I tended to be quite evasive about what I was having to eat or not having to eat. And so I suppose that in a sense puts a barrier up as well between people. You start to become, it puts up a barrier about all sorts of other things as well. The way you talk, relate with people.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, you go ahead. Go ahead, Paul.
That's all right. No, yeah.
Well, what would you say is one of the primary feelings that you had?
There was a certain element of feeling a sense of meaninglessness and kind of despair, really. And I suppose a sense, because I don't really know where I thought it was all going at the time, but it was almost a kind of drivenness as well. And in fact, when a few years later down the line, when I went up to be prayed for at a service, somebody did say to me, "Don't listen to the devil. You've been listening to him too much, haven't you?" So I don't know if there's anything of that in it, because it's quite a self-destructive thing to do, really. It's not, it's not a rational thing to do. It's something that seems to take over to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, I think your audience is broad. I think there's a lot of people that really can relate to this, can relate to definitely an eating disorder, but then the depression and the meaninglessness. Like, what's the meaning of life? What's my value? What's my worth? And isn't that really what every experience that's negative, that attempts to take us out in some way, somehow, it attempts to devalue that we are the creation of God, that we've been created by God, and we've been wired for love, and we have the DNA to encounter and experience his presence. And so when things like depression and eating disorder and different things happen in our life, they start to revalue and redefine who we were created to be. And that's where the conflict comes. The conflict comes is, I was created for this, but now I've been born into this world, and the world and life and sin and the enemy is trying to redefine what I've been created for. And then thus comes this conflict, whether it be depression or hopelessness or meaninglessness, and it ends up being an eating disorder. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to other types of things to find an identity or to fill that void, and it takes them down even further, and it takes them even more down a place of further away from what they were originally created and designed for. So what was a big defining moment? You talked about you went to church and things of that, and you went through all of this struggle. So we've heard a little bit about the pain. We've heard a little bit about the problem, and a big one. And a lot of people most people can identify with that value and that worth and that meaningless. But what changed? What happened to Paula Burr when all of that changed and Jesus showed up and came in and began to bring you back and redefine you to the your original purpose?
Well, one of the things that was quite a defining moment was just I was in a little Bible study group that I went to, and somebody was reading, beginning of John's Gospel, and was reading about how, behold, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world. And I'd heard that verse loads of times because I'd been to an Anglican communion service loads of times. And suddenly it seemed to light up. It was as if Jesus was saying, I know you can't do it all. That's why, that's why I died for you, so that, and somehow that lifted some of the kind of darkness and load, as it were, and the guilt, because there was a lot of guilt tied up there. And then, say, later on, I went to it was a kind of a service a bit further away from where I lived, and you could go up to have your hands laid on you if you wanted. So I went up, and they quoted a verse out of Isaiah about you shall hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, when you look to the right and the left. And then said this business about don't listen to the devil. You've been listening to him, haven't you? Listen to God. And somehow that kind of was it. I got a deep reassurance from God that his hand was on my life and that he was working in it. And then after that, things started to change. Then I felt quite a joy that I hadn't felt for ages, and as if there was a sense of release as well, which was quite empowering, really. And I seemed to the sort of healing process inside started then. I mean, there was still a way to go, but that was the start of it, and there was a sense of hope as well. Not the despair and just not wanting to be alive anymore, that kind of thing. So it was just a little thing, really. It wasn't a big, there weren't flashing lights or anything like that, but it was just a very gentle kind of thing. I suppose God knows how to deal with you, and he put some very gentle Christians into my life at the time as well, who were just lovely. They were so loving, and that as well was very good, because I was just a little teenager. It wasn't particularly very important, but everybody such great love. It was quite healing.
Wow. And then what was the process like for you, the ongoing process of your healing and your recovery and really your restoration?
It was very much, it was quite a up and down path, because I kind of went the other way for a little bit. There was such a release. I kind of I sort of just eating. I felt like I couldn't eat enough, kind of thing. So I had to sort of sort that out. And it took quite a while. But after it was while I was at university, God seemed to help me. Just said, just take a day at a time, and each day he would help me through. And also I think he put people in my life who I suddenly started to realize, well, people like me just as I am. I don't have to be thin, fat, or whatever. I'm all right as I am. And these lovely Christians love me anyway, and that helped a lot. And I managed to get to a kind of reasonable equilibrium after a while. And any kind of deviations I get now are more the sort of normal, normal kind of middle-aged, growing older kind of things. They're not to do with any kind of disorder. So, so it probably took about 10 years altogether for the whole thing to kind of work its way through. But God was there, and to say it's just relying on him and taking a day at a time with him, really, and not trying to say, well, as soon as you start trying to do things yourself, that's when it seems to not quite work.
Yeah. Well, I have one more question at this point, and then I want to turn over to Krissy and hear from her what she's thinking and feeling and sensing. But when people read your book, how do you want them to feel? What is the primary emotion you want people to feel when they read your book, Paula?
I suppose to feel sort of hope, really, for anybody who's in that situation, or perhaps they've got it might be a parent with a daughter in that situation, you know, just some hope that God can work through it. And because I know that there's a lot of girls who have problems now with eating disorders, and there's all sorts of treatment available now, but I don't know how much some of it necessarily works. And it was just the fact that God, you know, through God being in my life, that was what turned it round, really. So I think there's a kind of spiritual element to it. Really, I think you need that, you know, you need God in that kind of situation for it to get proper healing.
Absolutely.
Wow, Paula. I think you have your theme. You know, I know part of your question was about your theme. It sounds to me like you have a theme. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's helped to. I think trying to articulate it helps an awful lot, and getting feedback from you is really great, because you know you can go around in circles with yourself sometimes. And
yeah. I mean, you were just able to identify what God brought you out of and brought you into, and then, you know, how, and then that process, and then also how you want your readers to feel. I feel like you know, your book can bring people out of meaninglessness and into purpose. It can bring them out of disparity and into hope, you know. And I love what you said about just as you are, that was this aha that you experienced. All of a sudden it was like, God loves me just as I am. These people that he's put in my life, they love me just as I am. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to jump through hoops. I don't have to perform. And the tie-in to behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. I mean, you have, I feel like, everything you need just in what you've shared with us to write a full, rich book. And you can unpack that core scripture, the behold the Lamb of God, the John, it's 1:9, isn't it? Or 1:29. You can unpack that for people. And why does beholding the Lamb help me overcome, you said, guilt? You've experienced a lot of guilt. And how did that scripture help you overcome guilt? What was it in that? You know, what was it that, you know, what details unfolded in your spirit and in your heart and in your mind when you heard that verse and it changed your life, you know? And how can the reader then experience the same thing? How can mothers that read your book be enlightened as to how they can help their daughters? And then how can the daughters that read your book become enlightened as to how they can get out of this pit of disparity and into hope? You know, there is hope. They can overcome this by beholding the Lamb, you know?
Yeah. I just, without reading any of the content that you've already written, but just seen and spending a little bit of time with you, what I'm sensing and what I'm feeling is it has something to do with the original design of God for a person's life. That, you know, we when we talk about someone's destiny, God's plan for your life, God's dream for your life, God's purpose, we can't forget that the Word of God teaches us that we were fashioned intimately, intricately. Our original design was God. God originally designed Paula Burr to be the person that she is, that unique individual, that unique wiring, that unique personality, all the things that make up Paula were originally a thought, not by your mother, not by your father, but by God's design. But what every human being has to face and go through is that when we're born, although we have the original design, we've been created by God, we're born into sin. We're born into a world without a choice. We had no choice. And then we grow up and then we start to discover the choices, and then we start to make the decisions and the choices. And so I feel like somewhere, somehow, as you're talking about hope, It's the hope that, man, the hope is not dependent upon me as much as it is dependent upon me leaning on my creator. That's what I hear you saying. Me relying on my original design. I have to embrace it. I have to choose. I have to be willing to say no to sin and no to the world and break my alliance with sin and align myself with Jesus, death, burial, and resurrection. But as I do, the hope is that I get to come back into the original design. I get to come back into, that's my hope. And it relieves that pressure. It's kind of like, and I think that's what people that deal with a lot of their self-worth and self-value and feeling hopeless and meaningless, is it takes the pressure, that hope takes the pressure off. Is I don't have to perform. I don't have to look like this. I don't have to look like that. I don't have to act like this. I don't have to act like that. It's the hope that I can now just rest in the embrace of my original design. And what happened for you is Paula got to fall back into that hope and go, oh man, this was my original design. This was God's original plan for me. And sin got in the way, and the world got in the way, and depression and an eating disorder got in the way. But his faithfulness and the blood and the cross, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus brought you full circle back to that place. And then now the next layer of hope is eternity. And so I want to give you an assignment. I give you an assignment if you're okay with an assignment. I like to give assignments. So with the hope, here's my little, it's like a threefold assignment that I think it'll just help you to get clear on your theme. When we're writing our theme and we're kind of identifying our theme and whatever we're trying to do, we have to be careful that we don't have too much into it. It can be a long story. There can be many series to that story. There can be lots of characters. There can be lots of experiences. There can be lots of facets to the story. But ultimately, and not to be cheesy, but think about the movie like Lord of the Rings. Well, the basic theme was this guy, the shortest of them all, right? The squishiest of them all, the one that should never have been able to take on such a responsibility, ultimately defeated the enemy and had to go through this process. And there's lots of characters and there's lots of things that happen and there's good and they're bad. But ultimately the main theme was to overcome evil in a certain capacity. So as you're developing that theme, I would stick to about, 3 things that support your theme of hope. 3 primary things that will support your story of hope. And so the first thing would be, how are you taking people out? And maybe 50 words, 100 words, or 150 words, write it out. How am I going to take people out of hopelessness? And then the second assignment is, how am I going to take them into a life full of hope? And then the third one is, how does life look living full of hope? And if you could write out 50 to 150, I wouldn't do more than 150, but if you could write 50 to 150 words on all 3 of those, how am I taking, or what hopelessness am I taking people out of? What hope am I taking them into? And then how am I wanting them to experience a life full of hope? You've got your theme. And then you're plugging in the characters and you're plugging in the stories and you're plugging in lots of losses and then you're plugging in some wins. But the theme of everything, and you said it, was hope. To take people, because you felt you didn't have that value, you didn't feel that worth, and you felt hopeless. And when you don't feel valued and you feel meaningless, you feel hopeless. Like there is no solution. No matter what I look like, no matter what I try to do, it never is going to get better. So you have the authority. You've been authorized to pen that and help people come out of the hopelessness and get into a lifestyle full of hope to their original design. And I think if you do that little exercise, that little assignment, it will help you clarify the theme and then plug in all of the stories and the characters, all the losses and the wins that make it a really good book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Thank you very much for that. That's been really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful, because then you can take your stories, like you said, and you can even ask the Lord to, you may not have identified some of the wins that you've experienced as pointing to, oh, it's because I had hope, and so you can journey those with the Lord, some of these stories that you want to tell, and you can keep them on your theme by going, how does this pertain to hope? How is the root problem in this story hopelessness? And you can journey that through your life and track with it and go, wow, that's how I did with fear. It's like slaying the giant of fear over and over again. I as I wrote the book, I'm going, oh, this story that I've told 100 times, it was rooted in fear all along. And I had told it in different contexts, but in this book, I kept it laser focused on fear because that's what I was writing about. And it turned out that was a major root to the problem. And then fearlessness then was the solution through Christ. You can do the same thing with what you're doing when you have that theme. So that's going to be fun for you, Paula, because you had asked about structuring and things. So this is right there. This will help you.
That's been really great. Thanks. I've got something to work on there now.
Good.
It's good. Well, thank you so much, Paula. Thanks for being on with us. You're a real treasure. And I'm sorry that the world, beat you up back then. And I'm sorry you went through the things that you went through, but I want you to know you're a real treasure. You're real precious. And thank you so much for being with us here today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Paula. Bless you.
Wow. Also, it's so good just being able to hear people's story. And, we all have a story. Everybody has a story of feeling hopeless. Everybody has a story of somehow, some way, someone made you feel meaningless. And we all have the opportunity to move from hopelessness to a lifestyle full of hope. And that hope isn't based on the size of your bank account. That hope isn't based on how popular you are, how many people like you, don't like you. Has nothing to do with your worldly status. You have permission to break your allegiance to that system, to that culture, and embrace the allegiance of your original creation. I mean, you were not, your mom and dad, obviously they had a part, but God was the one who thought you up. You were a God thought. You were a God design. It was his idea for you to get here on great planet Earth. So I want to take just a minute, if we could, to encourage people to join us on this messenger life that we're doing right now. I'm going to share my screen if you all don't mind. Go to the messengerlife.com, and at the messenger life, hold on here we go. At the messengerlife.com, here's a quick screenshot of it, just sharing my screen. This is our Unlocking Your Book community. It's totally free. You can join us. And right now we have a daily devotional that we do on the Messenger Life. Every day at 9:30 a.m., one of our team members comes in and shares from, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes on embracing your call and embracing your design on the Messenger Life. It's totally free. We would love for you to join us. If you feel called, I'll show you some of the units here. There's actually, I think we're on day 13 right now. If you feel called to write, but maybe, see, here's all these videos here that they're all accessible. Here's day 12, day 11, you can just access these totally free, watch the video, participate. If you feel called to write, but you're confused and you're not sure exactly what to do, there's Liz, there's Teresa, who is that guy? All of our team members, Krissy's in here, Rebecca's in here, there's Krissy. So if you feel called to write, but maybe you're confused on what to write or how to write, or you feel like you just need someone to kind of help you navigate, well, we've built a framework so that writing and publishing your book is made much more simple. And maybe even you've written a book or you started writing a book, but you weren't able to get picked up by a publisher. We have put together a system that makes writing and publishing way more simple for you. And really, if you follow our process, even after writing your book and submitting your manuscript, if you continue to go through our process of editing and stay involved in what we're doing at Unlocking Your Book, this step-by-step guide will help you unlock your book, and we pretty much guarantee that you can get published. We can help you do that. So if you feel confused on what to write and how to get your book published, we would love for you to join us on this journey. Go to themessengerlife.com and come be a part of this awesome community. It's really a lot of fun. We really do have a lot of fun, as you can see, because Krissy's just nonstop making jokes, cracking jokes, and we are so thankful that we have that. We've got, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the jokester. That's me.
Yeah. Well, we do have a lot of fun, and you learn in a bit. It's a better learning environment when you make it fun, right? When it doesn't feel like such a task that I have. You make it fun. You actually can move the noodle.
You can move the noodle, and we move noodles around here.
We move noodles. We definitely move noodles. Well, guys, don't forget. Come on, don't forget. Your dad is rad. Give your dad lots of hugs and kisses. And, because of COVID-19, if you can't give your dad hugs and kisses, send him texts and messages and emails and phone calls and FaceTime him and let him know that you love him. That is all that in a bag of chips. Love you guys. Appreciate you. God bless. We will see you tomorrow. Take care. Toodles. Make your dad